Use color theory to make really white buttercream. Pythagoras to wrap a design around a cake. Multiplications to use recipes to make a bigger or smaller cake. The contents of your pencil case and toolbox, and even a toothpick for these smart cake hacks for smooth frosting and neat decorations. Ready? Let's get started. Conversions are useful if you want to bake a cake that's bigger or smaller than your recipe. Did you know that if you have an 8-inch cake recipe and you halve it, you'll have enough batter for a 6-inch cake? And if you divide a 6-inch recipe by 3 to make a third of the batter, you can make a mini cake with 4-inch pans. So with a 6-inch recipe, you can make 1 6-inch cake or 3 mini cakes. And with an 8-inch recipe, you can make 1 8-inch cake or 2 6-inch cakes. Now for some color theory. The colors opposite each other on a color wheel are complementary colors and they cancel each other out. So if you have yellow buttercream, add violet to make it look whiter. Just a tiny amount, which is easiest to do by dipping a toothpick into violet gel and then dragging the toothpick through your buttercream. Look at the difference this makes before and after adding violet. Another use for toothpicks is to make yourself a guide for piping. Trace around your cake pan onto a piece of paper and cut out that circle. Fold it in half and again, and then unfold it and place it on top of a frosted cake. Poke a toothpick into the frosting below each crease and use this to guide you as you pipe so that the decorations are evenly spaced around the cake. For decorations that wrap around a cake and need to fit perfectly, like stencil patterns or chocolate collars or cages and buttercream wraps, you'll save time by using Pythagoras. To find the length that will wrap around the cake, measure the width of the cake, the diameter, and multiply by pi, which is 3.14. Cut a piece of parchment or wax paper so it's that length, and then it will wrap snugly around the cake. This is perfect for stencils, so that a pattern lines up neatly. But if you're going to pipe onto it with buttercream to make a design, and then wrap it around the cake, add about 1 inch to make room for that layer of buttercream. Keep your pencil case out, because a ruler can also be used to frost a cake. After spreading buttercream or any other frosting onto your cake, press the base of a clean ruler down on the cake board to line it up straight, and then press the edge very gently into the frosting as you spin the turntable. The edge of the ruler will smooth the frosting as the cake turns around, and after 2 or 3 laps around the cake, you'd never know it was a ruler, not a cake comb, that made this frosting so smooth. Here's another tool you can use for cake decorating. You probably didn't expect to need your toolbox to make a cake, but a spirit level is an excellent tool to make sure your cakes are level on top, especially before you stack a tier cake. If the little bubble isn't in the center, push down on one side of the cake before you frost it. And that side of the cake layers will push down into the filling to straighten and level the cake. Then chill to set the cake, and frost it, and check the top again with a spirit level, and now it's ready to decorate to make a neat, straight cake. As well as straight cake layers, you'll also want them to be the same height as each other for the most beautiful slices. Bake even cake layers with this cake hack. Weigh your mixing bowl before you prepare your cake batter, and then weigh it again with the batter inside. Subtract the weight of the bowl and divide by the number of pans. Now put a pan on your scale and zero the scale and scoop the batter in until you get to that number you just calculated. Repeat for the rest of your pans, and this way you'll have exactly the same amount of batter in each pan, and your slices will be the neatest looking. I did a geeky experiment on the fastest way to make a cake, testing which methods will save you the most time when you assemble and frost a cake. Spoiler alert before we get to the end, piping the filling and frosting is much faster than scooping it up from the bowl and spreading it straight onto the cake. And using cold cake layers that have been in the fridge or freezer for a few minutes will make the process much quicker too. Is there a smart hack to tackle condensation? Absolutely. Avoid these moisture droplets and running colours on your cakes by paying attention to temperatures. Condensation happens when a cake goes through a big difference in temperature fast. For example, from a freezer of 0 degrees Fahrenheit moving to room temperature of about 72 degrees. The difference between the warm room outside of the cake to the cold inside of the cake is a big difference which will cause condensation or cake sweat. Instead, if your cake is frozen, move it to the fridge for 24 hours to thaw, and then to room temperature to minimize the temperature difference. Even if you don't use a freezer, if your room is too hot and your cake starts to sweat while you're decorating it, if you can't lower the temperature of the room, you can dab the cake with a paper towel to absorb the moisture droplets, which will disappear once the cake warms up to the temperature of the room. For great cake photos, I think the best trick is to make the background blurry or out of focus, to really draw attention to your cake. You can do this on a camera or a phone by adjusting the f-stop or f-number. For the best results, move your cake as far away from the background as possible. I like to use f2 or 3, which makes the background really blurry or out of focus. Let's crop this a bit. Now scroll up to an 11 and look at how sharp or in focus the background is. Those lines look really obnoxious here, but when they're blurry in the background, they look more interesting than distracting. On an iPhone, choose Portrait mode and tap the F up here, which will display a bar over here. Scroll anywhere up to a 16 or anywhere down to 1.4 and look at the difference. 1.4 compared to 16. The out of focus background really makes all of these photos look so much better than having everything in focus. So even though cake decorating seems creative, using your brain and nerdiness or geekiness can really help you make more practical and beautiful cakes. To learn more cake decorating techniques, visit my cake school on BritishGirlBakes.com. Thanks for watching.